operations to use to solve problems? Think about this question during the lesson. When a canal or river is not level, a lock can help boats pass through. A lock is a device that either lowers or raises the boat between two different levels. Here's the problem you need to solve. Water drains steadily out of a lock to lower a boat from one level to another. It takes 4½ minutes to lower the boat 3 feet. What is the boat's change in position each minute? Which operation can you use to find the boat's change in position in 1 minute?
Select your answer.
The problem gives the number of feet lowered and the total time, and asks for the number of feet the boat is lowered in 1 minute. This sounds like a unit rate, so you can use either multiplication or division to find a unit rate. The first step is to draw a bar that shows the total time it takes to lower the boat 3 feet. Each whole box represents the boat's change in position in 1 minute. This half box represents the boat's change in position in 1/2 minute. Now you need to decide which operation you will use to find the boat's change in position in 1 minute. How does the bar diagram help you see which operation to use? The diagram represents the situation since it divides the total number of feet into 4½ pieces. Each piece represents the amount the boat lowers in 1 minute. Find -3 divided by 4½ You can divide to find the boat's change in position in 1 minute. -3 divided by 4½ is equal to -3 divided by 9/2. Using the multiplicative inverse, -3 times 2/9, to get -6/9, which reduces to -2/3. So the boat's change in position is -2/3 feet each minute.
A weather balloon ascended from an elevation of 18 feet below sea level to an elevation of 19½ feet above sea level. What distance did the weather balloon rise?
So ascended means to go up, right? So that word ascended means to go up. So that tells us it's going to be, this balloon is going to be going up in the air, but it started, it says, from an elevation of 18 feet below sea level. So below sea level is pretty much like underwater, right? Let's say underwater. So that would be a negative number. So 18 needs to be represented as a -18. So you can see they set up part of the problem for us, and it is -18. And then it says to an elevation, it ascended from that -18 elevation to an elevation of 19½ feet above sea level. So above sea level is above water, right? So that's going to be a positive number. So you do have here positive 19½, which is here. So it says, what distance, is the question we're answering, what distance did the weather balloon rise? So the distance between the 2 points is the absolute value of their blank. So it would be, because we want to know the distance between its ascension, where it started and where it ended up. So we're going to have to subtract. So we're going to find the value of their difference, because the difference is the answer to a subtraction problem. So difference would go here. And so now we're going to find the difference. That needs to be a minus sign there. So now we're going to subtract -18 and 19½. And so because half we know as a decimal is 0.5, we can use a calculator to solve this. So we're going to subtract in our calculator negative 18 minus 19.5. And that will give us our answer of negative 37 and 5/10. And as a fraction, you could have written it as negative 37.5. So the weather balloon rose a distance of 37.5 feet.
Kevin played a trivia game. Each correct answer is worth 2 1/4 points, and each incorrect answer is worth negative 1/2 point. What was Kevin's score?
We're going to write an expression for Kevin's score. So 15 times 2 1/4, that parentheses around the 15 means to multiply, plus 15 times negative 1/2. And that 15 comes from Kevin's correct answer. So he got a total of 15 correct, and he actually got a 15 incorrect. So 15 times the 2 1/4 is the correct answer point amount, and then the negative 1/2 is the value of each one he got wrong. So if we multiply the two, as they show us here, we multiply first both sides, and you get 135/4 for the correct answers, and then negative 15/2 for the wrong answers. Then you add them up. And so when you add them up, they do have to have the same denominator. So 15/2 turned into 30/4, and now they have the same denominator. So you subtract 135 minus 30, which equals 105/4. And then you have an improper fraction that you need to change into a mixed number, and 26 1/4 points would be his score. Another way they're showing us here is using the distributive property. So because 15 was the total he got correct and incorrect, we can use the 15 on the outside of the grouping. Remember, I talked about that GEMDAS in the other lesson. Now you see brackets here. Okay, that is another way to group numbers. So 15 is on the outside of these brackets, and on the inside is the 2 1/4 for his correct answers, and the negative 1/2 for his incorrect answers. And then you have to, of course, add these points together to get the final score. But the 15 on the outside, with distributive property, the number on the outside has to be multiplied by everything on the inside. So what that means is that you're going to, for distributive property, you're doing 15 times that first number on the inside of the grouping, and then 15 on the second number inside that grouping. So 15 times 2 1/4, and then you have 15 times the negative 1/2. So another way of doing that is you can add together what's inside the grouping. So 2 1/4 plus negative 1/2, and that will give you this 1 3/4. And then you multiply the 15 by that answer. And that answer, first they changed the mixed number into an improper fraction, and then multiplied it and got 105/4, just like we did over here, and 26 1/4, just like we did over here. And so two different ways, and there's actually two ways within distributive property, but so we have kind of three ways to solve the same problem and get the same answer.
Rashida had 18 correct answers and 12 incorrect answers. What was Rashida's score?
Each correct answer is worth 2 1/4 points, and each incorrect answer is worth negative 1/2 points. So now we're going to solve for Rashida's score. So we're going to use the first way we saw in the last problem, because we can't use distributive property in this case because Rashida doesn't have the same number for incorrect and correct answer. So we're going to use that first way. So we're going to take 18, which is the number of correct answers, And we're going to multiply it by the 2 1/4 points for each of those. So by multiplying them, we would get the total points he gets for correct answers. All right, and so now we're going to add the 12 times the negative half points so that we can find out the total number of points he got for the incorrect answers. So we're going to multiply. So we're going to do 2 1/4 is easy to turn into a decimal. So I'm going to, we're going to make that 2 25/100 because 1 of 4 is like 1/4 out of 4 quarters is 25 cents. So we have 18 times 2 25/100, and we can do that in a calculator. So 18 times 2 25/100, that gives us 40 5/10. So that's his total for his correct answers. And then we have to add, so we'll say that, add the 12 times a half, and a half as a decimal is 0.5, and that's negative 0.5. And again, because it's decimals, we can use a calculator. So 12 times negative 0.5 is equal to negative 6. I'm going to put in parentheses because it's a negative. And we just want to separate the difference of the addition sign and the subtraction so there's no confusion. And then you take 40 5/10 plus negative 6, negative 6, and that equals 34 1/2. So 34 1/2 can be written as a decimal 34 5/10 or 34 1/2. So Rashida's total score is 34 1/2.
Evaluate the expression 8 times the quantity, the absolute value of negative 5 5/10 minus 16 8/10 divided by 2 1/2 plus negative 5 squared. Evaluate inside the parentheses first. The absolute value symbols are treated as grouping symbols. Remember we talked about that. So the grouping we have to do, so negative 5 5/10 minus 16 8/10 is inside those parentheses. So we're going to do negative 5 5/10 minus the 16 8/10. That's a negative 11 3/10. And then you have the 2 1/2 plus the negative 5 squared. So now we have for GEMDAS, remember G was grouping, E is for the exponent, so that's the powers. That 2 is an exponent or a power. So we have to do that next. So 5 to the power of 2 is 5 times 5. In this case we have negative 5, so negative 5 times negative 5. That equals a positive 25. So that's where we have this positive 25. Now we have to, the next is M. In GEMDAS is M and D. So it's multiply or divide from left to right, whichever one comes first. So if we look to the left of the problem, we have 8 times negative 11 3/10 comes first. So then we would multiply that first. And that's 90 4/10. They changed 2 1/2 to a decimal. Plus 25. So now we have division next. So negative 90 4/10 divided by 2/5 is negative 36 16/100 plus 25. And then last was GEMDAS is addition and subtraction. So here we only have addition, so we add it. And so adding those two numbers together, we get negative 11 16/100. So the final answer is negative 11 16/100. So we're going to look at this expression and evaluate it the very same way.
Evaluate the expression, the quantity negative 4 5/10 divided by 2 1/2 minus 3 5/10 times 3 squared minus the absolute value of negative 2 8/10.
Okay, so let's take a look, and we're going to remember we've now changed over to GEMDAS because that includes all grouping now instead of just parentheses. So I'm going to look here at the expression, and I see grouping. I have parentheses and I have absolute value. So I'm going to solve for those groupings, and I'm going to rewrite the expression. So negative 4.5 divided by 2.5 equals, that's going to equal negative 1 8/10. And I used the calculator and changed 2.5 to 2.5 so I can use the calculator to divide. So negative 1 8/10 minus 3 5/10 times 3 squared minus negative 2 8/10. The absolute value of that is going to be 2 8/10. And then now we've already evaluated the grouping. Now next is exponents. So for my exponent, I do have, and that's 3 to the power of 2 here. And so 3 to the power of 2 simply, the exponent simply tells you how many times to multiply the base, and my base is 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. So I'm just going to rewrite the remainder of the expression that we have after I evaluated that exponent. So just rewriting. All right, now I am going to evaluate the next part of my GEMDAS, and that is multiplying or dividing, whichever comes first from left to right. We don't have division anymore, so we have the minus 3 5/10 times 9. So we're going to do that first. And once again, you can use your calculator to multiply those two numbers, and you should get negative 31 5/10. And now I'm just rewriting the remainder of the expression. Okay, now I'm going to do the next part of GEMDAS, which is addition or subtraction, starting left to right. But I don't have any addition, all I have is subtraction. So I'm going to just start subtracting from left to right. So 1 8/10, again using the calculator, negative 1 8/10 minus 31 5/10 is going to give me negative 33 3/10 minus 2 8/10. And then I'm going to subtract that, 2 8/10. I'm going to get my final answer of negative 36 1/10 as the final answer to this expression.